Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'll be reviewing the book Stay With Me by Ayóbàmi Adébáyò, who's a Nigerian writer. So Stay With Me is a story about marriage, and we have a couple, Yejide and Akin, and they've been married for 4 years but they don't have any children. So throughout the book you kind of see how they get to the solution of having a child, and both of them, they actually want a baby for different reasons. This is after Akin's family, especially his mother, she keeps pushing for Yejide to have a child. She even gets to the extent of taking a new girl to Akin's office each and every single month so that he could choose a second wife, because they feel like Yejide has not given him a child after 4 years of marriage. The book is set in the 80s, and for you to get a feel of the times, there's something political happening in the background. There's like a coup going on in the background. So if you're quite familiar with Nigerian history, you kind of get to understand what kind around what time that was happening when Akin and Yejide were going through their journey. So the first chapter starts with Yejide narrating how she's been wanting to go back. So it's like a moment of reconciliation, but as you get to the end of the book, you understand why they had to reconcile, and if they're going to work things out or if they're not going to work things out. So the story is told by both Akin and Yejide, and in each and every single section or chapter rather, you kind of see like their voices, what they were going through and why they both wanted a child. And there are certain topics that were raised in the book, because in the beginning you get to know and understand that Yejide and Akin, they loved each other. They really loved each other. Even Akin, the way he adored Yejide. And in I think it's in the 3rd chapter, when he first met Yejide, he definitely knew he was going to marry her. So it kind of shows that love is not enough at times. There is more to it than just love, especially when families tend to get involved. So from Yejide's point of view, the reason why she wanted to have a child is because she grew up on her own. Her mother died when she was giving birth, and she didn't have anyone else, even though her father had numerous wives and she had step siblings, but she never really related to them. So she wanted someone to call her own, someone. And the reason why Akin wanted a child was more to do with him being like the oldest son, and he wanted, like in African culture, as the oldest son, it's your responsibility for you to like grow the lineage, that kind of thing. So there was so much pressure from his mother for him to kind of like give her a grandchild. But Akin kind of has a secret that he's keeping from his wife and everyone around him, and it's the main thing in the book, and it's to do with impotence, which is something most people don't talk about, because when a woman doesn't get pregnant after a couple of years, people tend to think that it's a fault, but they never really question if it's the woman. That's usually in African culture, which I relate to, and they kind of blame the woman to say, oh, she's the one who's barren, and they're quick to bring a second wife for the husband. But in this book, it actually turns out it was Akin who was impotent. He couldn't get his wife pregnant, and when they brought the second girl, she found out about him, and then after a couple of days, when she moved in with them, she was found dead. So not really sure who killed her, but if you read the book, you get to understand what exactly happened to her. But at the same time, in the book, it's a story where there isn't a villain or someone who's a victim. It kind of balances everything out, because at the end, Akin kind of does something very deceitful. He doesn't really tell his wife that's what's going on, to the point where Yejide ends up having a phantom pregnancy. She ends up thinking she's pregnant. She had all the symptoms, and that was after she had gone to a mountain where she was told to breastfeed a goat. So Akin and Yejide end up having children, but them having children is not a blessing as they thought it would be, because there's grief, there's sadness with the children when it comes to question. And when she's going through all this, also her mental health is affected by it, that by the time she has a 3rd or is it a 4th child, she kind of gives up and she walks away. Now, I'm not going to say what she walks away from, because she doesn't walk away from one thing, but she walks away from Akin and everything that was around her. Another topic that is in the book is on identity, Akin believes that for him to be called a man, he has to have children, and also on the other hand, Yejide believes that for her to be called a woman, to be someone in society, she has to have children, she has to be pregnant. So both are driven into desperation to the point where Akin has to talk to his brother for him to get his wife pregnant, but at the same time he doesn't tell the wife that that's what he has planned, and Yejide ends up sleeping with the brother, but she doesn't know that Akin has planned it. So it kind of shows that out of desperation they did everything that they could for them to have a baby, but the problem is the children, they ended up dying, and it wasn't because of something that is spiritual. Another topic that stood up for me too was on religion, how sometimes it kind of cages people, because Yejide, she ended up being so desperate, she ended up going into a mountain to try and get pregnant, and even when she was not well, she couldn't come out and say, oh, I'm not okay, because it was, oh, when she would try to express herself, they would always say, oh, by the grace of God, by God's time, and all of that, without even considering her mental health. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think sometimes it kind of cages people not to really express how they feel or what exactly they're thinking, which kind of drove Yejide over the edge. Another topic that stood out for me was on parenthood, like when a parent loses their child, how it affects them, how it affects how they love the other children, because in the story we kind of see there's a loss there, and how Yejide, how it actually affects her mentality to the point that she kind of shuts down, and when she has other children after she lost the first one, she kind of distances herself from them. So that also kind of shows how people view parenthood, how parents are supposed to always be happy, always to provide, but I think we kind of don't take into consideration the mental health when they go through something as terrible as losing or outliving their child. Also mental health, the fact that she became very obsessed with getting pregnant, to the fact that even when she thought she had been pregnant for over a year, she could not believe the doctors when they were telling her that she wasn't pregnant, and people actually ended up calling her crazy rather than taking time to talk to her or trying to understand where exactly she was coming from. Everyone just labeled her crazy, to the point that even her husband was laughing at her when she said that she was pregnant, but at first he was not laughing that she was pregnant because he thought she was crazy. It's because he knew how, like, he was impotent, so that's why he was laughing, to think, oh, you can't be pregnant because I can't get you pregnant, but he did not really tell her, which I think also drove her to be desperate. The fact that her husband was actually hiding something from her. So this is actually her first book, which was published about 3 years ago in 2017, and I must say it's a page turner. It's a very, very good book. And also the fact that you kind of understand, she kind of tries to explain and for the reader to understand that what men go through and what women go through to be considered good husband or good wives, and how marriage is portrayed in the eyes of those who are outside of it rather than in the eyes of those who are inside of the marriage. So yeah, I would really recommend the book if you're someone who's trying to try something different. It's fiction and it's not that hard to understand. I actually finished it in about four days, and yeah, it was a very good book. So feel free to like, share and subscribe. Until next time, bye.